It's about the I got to say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Gets the ball, gets back, pulls up for the win. Got it! Detroit basketball. Oh, Holloman looks the clock. Half court for the win. Oh! The Lions go for it. The Vikings bring it. He's a pass. It's a touchdown to get him. Javi Baez homered earlier. First one in the air, deep left field again. Yes, Tigers win. Robbie is unstoppable.
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. Welcome one, welcome all. It's a cold evening in the state of Michigan and in much of the country, not just Michigan. It is, in fact, not winter. It's not winter yet. It'll be winter on Sunday. That's the first day of winter. I don't care what anybody. It's still fall, technically. I am obedient to the almighty calendar, and I will not be treated. I will not be assuaged anyway, any other way. All right, you cannot convince me. Anyway, the Lions lost this Sunday, so we're going to talk about that because it doesn't look good for their playoff odds. It really doesn't. There's no sugarcoating it. And to add on to the depression factory that is the Detroit Lions, I'm also going to talk a little bit Detroit Tigers because they have technically had some in offseason. Technically, they have made signings, plural, technically. Like they have technically put players under contract for next year. They've technically done that. They've even made trade. They've only made one, so I can't say trades, plural. They made a trade that nobody even knows about. I can't even find I can't even find the trade. That's not even a joke. I was looking at the MLB website for. It just says that we traded Chase Lee. It didn't say who we got. Like, okay, that's never good. But yeah, it's gonna be a really uplifting show. So if you're feeling sad, if the holidays are stressing you out. If you haven't bought your parents Christmas gifts, or your parents haven't bought you Christmas gifts, or you haven't bought your kids Christmas gifts, whatever your situation might be, maybe this is the show to skip. And I usually don't want people to not watch my show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. But this is going to be a sad show. So just letting you know. All right. Let's just jump into it. All right. Fun time on Sunday. Lions fall to the Rams by a score of 41-34. Final score, however, does not indicate how not close this game was, especially in the second half. This game was so utterly demoralizing. To go from up double digits, with 30 seconds to go in the second quarter, to then scoring no points in the third quarter and giving up 17 unanswered is actually 24 or 20 unanswered, I should say, because they had the field goal at the very end. It's just not acceptable. And that goes as much on the players as it does on coaching, but there are some positives to take away from this game as far as the players go. Jared Goff played a really good game. I mean, even in a loss, 90 quarterback rating, 111 rating, played a better game than Matthew Stafford did. I'll tell you that much. 3 touchdowns for Goff, 338 yards in the air, no picks, sacked just once, wasn't sacked at all in the first half. He played a really solid game. Got over 100 yards to the two top receivers on this team in Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Saint with 2 touchdowns, J-Mo with 1. Could have had a bomb to him in the third, or a bomb to Jamison Williams in the third quarter if J-Mo doesn't drop that ball. And also, there maybe should have been defensive pass interference. But I digress. We're getting into the good stuff. So that's about where the good stuff ends because the Lions couldn't establish the run. They ran just total of 70 yards. Neither Gibbs nor Montgomery really were having great games. Montgomery did have the 1 rushing touchdown on the Wildcat formation trick play. I mean, if you want to count that, sure. I guess it technically counts. But, yeah, it was a rough day on the ground. And this is really the theme with this team. If they can't run the football, they're probably not going to win the game. Barring like the other team turning the ball over or otherwise giving up huge field position. If the Lions can't run the football, they're just not going to be able to win because they're just not going to control time of possession. And the opponent's going to have the football for much longer because you're just going to have to dunk and dime and throw the ball, and clock's going to get stopped every incompletion, if there are any. It's not good. And it's funny because the Lions didn't turn the ball over at all offensively. They got a turnover. Aiden Hutchinson with an amazing pick could have gone for 6. But that's about where the good ends, because this defense is just once again costing this team wins. And look, Jack Campbell was good. 10 solo tackles for him. Everybody else, I guess Aiden Hutchinson had a pick, but outside, I mean, even then, he didn't do that much. He had a sack on the day, I guess. Yeah, everybody else was a no-show. Al-Qadim Muhammad was a no-show. Tyleik Williams, basically a no-show. Marcus Davenport, I'm going to be honest. I forgot that Marcus Davenport came back. Apparently he's been back since the Green Bay game. I forgot he was back. I think the team might have forgot he was back. But this secondary is just decimated. You're putting out Rock Yassin and Amik Robertson as as 3 of your top corners. That's just not going to work. People make fun of Terrion Arnold. I think Terrion Arnold is certainly an improvement from Rock Yassin, and he was showing signs of improvement. But with the injuries and whatnot, it doesn't look good for him at all. DJ Reed is basically your best corner, and as good of a player as he can be, he's not Ed Reed. He's not Ed Reed. He's not going to just completely lock down a receiver. It's not going to happen. And as much as I might like the effort from guys like Avonte Maddox, again, you're down 2 of your top safeties against an elite wide receiver room in LA. It's just not going to work. These guys are not going to help you. You're going to have to come up with the turnovers. You're going to have to be perfect on offense. And they weren't perfect on offense. Just the thing that boggles the mind is the Rams were able to make the adjustments to stop the Lions offense in the second half. The Lions have failed to make any adjustment to stop the Rams in any way. They didn't adjust to the adjustment of the Rams. They kept basically whatever the offensive play calling or strategy was, they never altered it. They just kept it exactly the same and allowed for the Rams to just feast on you. And it doesn't help, and I know this is sour grapes to a lot of people, but I do have to bring it up. It doesn't help when the Lions feel like they got to play 2 opponents. All right? I don't care who you're playing. If one team gets just 1 penalty the whole game, and that penalty comes in the fourth quarter when the game is pretty much out of reach anyway, it makes one raise the eyebrow. And especially given the age that we live in with sports betting and with players getting caught gambling on games that they're involved in, looking at you, Emmanuel Clase, and plenty. I mean, heck, the Lions aren't unfamiliar with sports betting having an effect. Jameson Williams himself has been suspended for such actions. Granted, not on NFL games, but needless to say, the officiating in this game was just absurd. I mean, that touchdown from, I don't even know, what was the name of the tight end? Landman? Was that him? I don't even know. No, that wasn't him. He's on the defense. I'm looking at the wrong guy. Parkinson? Colby Parkinson? I mean, I don't understand if I'm a dummy, but I was born and raised under the belief that knee down, ball not in end zone, not touchdown. Apparently, the referees in Los Angeles, California disagree. Apparently, you can have your knee down and apparently not have control, which means that it should have not been a catch then. I don't know how that... Just absolutely pathetic. Just a complete mismanagement of the officials. And, it's another one of those things that adds to a bad day in the office for Detroit. Again, I'm not saying it cost them the game. It definitely didn't cost them the game. What cost them the game is giving up 2 fourth downs that they very well could have gotten stops and had a chance to go up double digits. What cost them the game was up 10, 30 seconds to go, giving up a 20-second field goal drive. What cost them the game was going 3 and out after the forced the Rams to kick a field goal when they could have gone up 10 again and really put the pressure on LA. That's what cost them this game. Okay? They couldn't get the stops when they needed them, and the offense in the second half completely imploded. And the play calling was questionable at best. So you can't take the game back, okay? You can't go back and relitigate it, okay? The game happened. Lions lost. You got 3 games left. You got Pittsburgh at home. You got Minnesota on the road on short rest. And you got Chicago on the road on 10-day rest. Lions are basically going to have to run the table, and if they don't, that's pretty much it. And it would be, in my opinion, and I've made this clear, one of the great travesties in Detroit sports if this team goes from 15-2, number 1 seed, division champs, best record in franchise history, to missing the playoffs the following year. I know that they lost their all-pro, potentially Hall of Fame center. I know that they've lost multiple all-pro level players to injury. They haven't had Kirby Joseph since the Chiefs game. They lost Brian Branch for the rest of the year. They lost Christian Mahogany for a significant portion of this year. They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost their defensive coordinator. They lost a variety of position coaches. I know their wide receivers coach was a coach they lost. They lost a lot in the offseason. What they can't lose is their ability to go to the playoffs. They are just too talented. They have too many good players on this team to mismanage them in such a way to not get yourself into the playoffs. I mean, heck, the Eagles just a couple of years ago made the playoffs going 9-8. And they didn't do much with that, obviously. And frankly, as much as I would be upset with that being the ending of the season, I will take that because at least that means, okay, we can still make the postseason. We can be one of the 14 teams that could win the Super Bowl that year, technically. And if we can't even make that, and to make matters worse, if we are losing out to one of the teams who stole one of our coordinators in the Chicago Bears, frankly, that is an embarrassment on the franchise. And you just can't have it. You just can't have it. But here's the thing. If you win out, all is forgiven. You go 11-6. Granted, worst record in since 2022, which is still a better record than that year. And you probably have if you win out, you got about a 90+% chance to make the playoffs. Right now, you're sitting at about a 40% chance. So they obviously the odds makers obviously don't foresee you running the table, but that doesn't mean you can't. I mean, Pittsburgh, they won last night. They're going to be on short rest coming into your house. Okay, and they are not a good team. Okay, they're not good. But you got to handle business. Aaron Rodgers has done some magical things in Ford Field. Handle business. Then you got Minnesota, short rest. Minnesota looked pretty good against Dallas, and they already beat you this year. I'm sure the Lions want to get revenge as much as anybody. Then you got Chicago to end the year. Just get the job done. If you are one of the premier organizations in the NFL, which I believe the Lions are, then you win these 3 games, you make the postseason, and that's it. So it's disappointing that it has to come down to this. Frankly, we should have already clinched the playoffs. But, that's what happens when you lose games early to teams like Minnesota, teams like Kansas City, that you frankly should have beaten. Those 2 wins, you would be in by this point, pretty much. But you're not. So, go and silence the doubters. Yeah. I did see. I got the Michigan State game on. They are murdering Toledo. They are just bullying them. Excuse me. Can somebody please explain to me why Peacock needed to have this game? Like who at NBC was like, you know what game we really need? We need Michigan State, Toledo, when the student section is away after finals in the fall semester. That's what we need. No, you do not. No, you do not. No, you do not. Try to tune into the Red Wings game, but of course they are playing the Islanders. The Islanders score. Oh, great. My buddy's at that game. So he was the one I went to. That was my first Red Wings game at the LCA last year. I went to him. It was also one of the last games that Derek Lalonde was coaching. So, but actually, speaking of the Red Wings, I do want to see how are they doing right now? Are they still losing? Oh yeah, they're down 1-0. Tremendous stuff. What the heck? Hold on. I'll be right back. I just heard something. I'm just going to. No, that was weird. I like it sounded okay. So my girlfriend is traveling to South Carolina. She's got family in Houston, but she's going to South Carolina first. I swear I heard what sounded like her phone going. I was like, why would she leave it here? I saw her yesterday. Anyway. Rather than have this game than MSU Oakland, just because I have a good amount of Oakland alum relatives. Fair point. And the Oakland game though, that's at the LCA, isn't it? Or are they playing that in the Breslin this year? Because they just were like, you know what? What's the point of trying to make it a kind of home game? But anyway, Lions messed up by not running Montgomery more, 4.6 yards per carry compared to Gibbs' 2.9 yards. Here's what I'll say about this, because the problem is, like, there was something that I saw. And it was like a stat. And basically it said, like, in all the Lions losses, David Montgomery ran for more yards per carry than Jahmyr Gibbs. Here's what I'll say. I think probably the reason why Montgomery might be more effective, or might seem to be more effective in these losses, is that, or rather, when Gibbs is not running well, you're not winning games. So if Montgomery's running well, then other teams seemingly are more willing to give that up. I don't know if that makes any sense, but either way, I agree. I think they should have a similar approach that they had last year, where they ride the hot hand. Montgomery was clearly the hotter hand yesterday on Sunday's game, and they didn't do it. They didn't keep handling them the rock. I guess it's kind of like, it's a little bit of gambler's fallacy. You know that at some point, potentially Gibbs could break off a huge run, but he never did. When MSU plays Oakland in the LCA or the Palace, it's supposed to be an Oakland home game, since they know it's not a good idea to have MSU playing Rochester Hills, mainly because of a tiny. Yeah, true. I agree totally. I don't know. It might also be that age is starting to be a factor in David Montgomery. I know we just extended him, but they are seemingly weaning him out and utilizing Gibbs more. And maybe that's a difference in the offensive philosophy from Johnson to Morton, or I guess I would say the offensive philosophy is very similar to what it was under Johnson. I don't think Dan Campbell had no input, obviously. And on the point of play calling, the Lions offense has been one of the top offenses basically since Campbell took over play calling. So to me, it is a lot of execution. It's a lot of the injuries starting to come up. I'm not worried so much about this offense, especially fully healthy, barring the offensive line, which definitely needs some reloading in the offseason. But it's just something about the team right now is off, and I really hope that this loss can just be the nail in the wake yourself up coffin. And I know that's not actually a great analogy to make when we're talking about a team still out of the playoff picture, but you need to do better on both sides of the football. They need to be able to get stops when they have the opportunity, and unfortunately, I don't know how good their personnel is. I do know their personnel on defense is just not good enough. And on that point, I mentioned it last week. We're now like 3 years in to significant injuries, especially in the secondary. In 2023, we had guys going down in our secondary. Emmanuel Mosley comes to mind. Now, granted, injury prone. Nevertheless, in last year, everybody basically went down except for Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. Those are like the only two guys that survived. It's basically the opposite of last year, where like Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph go down this year, and last year it was like everybody else. Like this year, you still got Hutchinson, you still got McNeil, although he came back later in the year. But ironically, like he came back later in the year, and you've seemingly gotten worse on defense. And your linebacking room is healthy. Montgomery, Jack Campbell, Anzalone, Barnes, they're all out there. You didn't have Derek Barnes all year last year. But you've had him all this year, and he's been solid, but not, just not good enough, basically. And maybe it's a scheme thing. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's, guys are allowed to have bad nights. Guys are allowed to have bad days. But, I understand that it's tough to help your secondary when you don't have the kind of pass rush that a lot of the elite defenses like Philadelphia, like Houston has. And maybe this will finally serve as a kind of wake-up call for management to think, okay, like we might like our internal guys, but we clearly have a lack in the defensive line. I would be shocked. He just signed with Las Vegas. If he really wanted to be here, I think he would force his way here. It'd be a kind of Alex DeBrincat situation where it's like, okay, like there's no world where DeBrincat, for example, was going to the Islanders. Like it was just not going to happen. He was, he's a Michigan guy. He's going to come to Detroit. Maybe if he's like, you know what, Vegas, I hate it here. Trade me to Detroit. I don't care. Like I'll sit out unless you trade me to Detroit. That would be the only scenario. And if they did do that, then the Lions would win the Super Bowl. I am fully convinced of that. Fully healthy, they would run the table. They would win the Super Bowl. That defensive line would be unstoppable because you're not going to be able to double team both Hutchinson and Max Crosby. You're just not going to be able to do it. You're going to pretty much get a sack every game from either one of those guys. After this season, I mean, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. But hey, this is the thing about some of these players, man. Is like they talk about, I want to compete, I want to win a championship. Oh, I'm sorry, how many million? Yeah, sure, I'll sign. It's like, what happened, Myles Garrett? What happened, Max Crosby? Don't you guys want to compete? Guess not. Although I will say the Trey Hendrickson train, I think, is not as interesting to most people anymore. I'm gonna just pull up his numbers actually. Just because I know he's missed some time due to injury. But, he's got 4 sacks on the year. So, I'll just say this. I don't want to say I told you so, but I kind of told you so. I warned you. I said, hey, this guy's coming in. This is his age 31 season. This is usually when guys drop off at that position. And they mocked me for it. They said I'm stupid. They said I was a brat apologist. Well, who's laughing now? Bengals are terrible, and he has played 7 total games this year and 4 sacks. Granted, pretty good in those 7 games, but still. Either way, I mean, like, the problem is I don't know that you're going to find that. Here's what I'll say. Okay, you're not going to find a Hutch caliber or above player out there in free agency, it's going to have to be in a trade. So if a Max Crosby or a Myles Garrett or one of these unicorn-esque kind of edge rush players, if they make themselves available, it is beholden on Bradley Holmes to, at the very least, see what they're asking for. Now, if they want 3 first-round picks, you can tell them to pound sand. Because that's a stupid trade. You know, you don't trade 3 first-round. You barely trade 3 first-round picks for a quarterback, let alone for a defensive edge, and let alone for one that is, you know, closer to 30 than they are to 20. So, and to be fair, even to a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, who I think is one of the upper echelon edge rushers in the league, you know, he's 25 years old. You know, people act like he's like 30. If he was 30 putting up these stats, then yeah, okay. He's not necessarily a total bust, but he is a significantly overrated player to that point. But, you know, he's 25 years old. He's got 9.5 sacks this year. He's probably going to get the double digits, right? I mean, I would be shocked if he doesn't get to Aaron Rodgers at least once, or to JJ or Caleb Williams at least once over the next 3 weeks. I mean, heck, even if it gets half a sack, you know, that would be enough. But anyway, you know, we can get into the offseason, but the season's not over, so I'm not ready to go into offseason mode. I'll be ready when I'm ready, okay? Emotionally, I'll be ready when I'm ready. Okay. Moving along, though. Let me take a swig of water. Okay. So, first things first, got to talk about this. Chiefs dynasty is over. Woo, it's over. We did it, boys. We ended the Kansas City Chiefs. Shout out to Seth's Chargers. They ended the Kansas City Chiefs in exactly the way you would want them to. Embarrassing, awful, ugly football. Now, here's what I will say. The real story of this is not just that the Chiefs are eliminated from the playoffs officially. It's that Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL and is done for the rest of the year and is done for probably a good portion of next year. If I was him, based on the way that season next year is going to go, which will be very, very bad. If I'm him, I'm done for this year, obviously. I'm just going to take next year off. I'm going to take all of next year to get healthy, to get fit, to be ready for a 2027 campaign. You know, that's just how I'm feeling. Now, I will say this. Tom Brady tore his ACL in the late 2000s, early 2010s. And many people at that point were saying that the dynasty of the Patriots was done. They're going to have to move on from him. You know, it's over. All the good they're retiring. It's done. Do not underestimate the potential of these superstar quarterbacks to have teams reloaded around them. Now, granted, if the Chiefs management continues to mismanage Mahomes' roster like they have the last few years, then yeah, it's really over. But guys get fired, new guys come in, they can readjust for sure. Now, I will say this. The Lions fall off is one thing, because the Lions are still technically fighting for a playoff spot. Their season is not over. The Chiefs, that is just downright depressing. Okay, they went 15-2. They made the Super Bowl. Okay, they were 1 win away from a three-peat. And they are going to miss the playoffs, and their franchise quarterback, who last year was a genuine MVP candidate, the way he was just lording that team across the finish line, that is just, you know, I don't usually feel sorry for Chiefs fans, and I don't really feel that sorry for Chiefs fans, but that's got to be tough. That's got to be tough. I don't know why the Peacock broadcast is so, like, awful. It just keeps, like, buffering. I don't know. It's stupid. Anyway. Yeah. So, it's depressing. Got to come back and play 6-ish games. Does he have to? I mean, like, if I'm him, what's the point? If you're, like, you know, let's see, 6 games left. If you're like, so it's 11 games total. If you're like 3-8, why are you playing any games? Like, what's the point? Like, why would you do that? You run the risk of, number one, ruining your draft stock because you're going to be eliminated from the playoffs starting 3-8, right? Unless your division is so bad that somehow if you win out, you can make a playoff spot, which we know that division is not going to be that bad, I don't think, next year with the emergence of guys like Bo Nix and with a potentially healthier offensive line for the Los Angeles Chargers and whomever the Raiders end up hiring. And, well, who am I kidding? The Raiders are never going to be good again. That's mean. That was mean. I'm sorry, Raiders. I like the Raiders. I want the Raiders to be good, but they're like the AFC Lions, except I guess they won a Super Bowl. They won 2 Super Bowls, I think. So anyway. Speaking of teams that have sucked but may not suck anymore, the Bills. What a win. I mean, to go down 24-7 in that, I mean, I thought the Lions collapse was bad. The Patriots, this game is every single reason why I do not trust this New England Patriots team in the playoffs. Because that is a game you got to close out. That is a game that if you're experienced, if you're a vet, if you got dogs, if you got established star level players, they win that game. And the Patriots, as good as they are, I don't think they are at that status yet. Drake May is an MVP candidate quarterback. And Travion Henderson is playing real good ball. They've also got Steph Diggs, who's a veteran leader, which is funny to imagine Steph Diggs as a veteran leader in that room. But they can't get caught with the pants down like that. The Bills had no business winning that game, and they did. They came back and they stole that game. And that's going to give them all that energy. The last 3 weeks for Buffalo, they're going to have all that energy from this win. So I fear Buffalo more than any team in the AFC. I mean, let me just pull up the standings here really quick. I fear Buffalo more than I fear all of the teams ahead of them. Easily. Like, if I got Buffalo against Denver, who am I taking? You think I'm taking Denver? No. If I've got New England versus Buffalo, that might be the closest game you get. I'm still probably taking Buffalo. Taking them over Jacksonville. Definitely taking them over the Steelers. And I'm probably taking them over the Chargers too. Like, there's no world where it's funny because they're the 6th seed, but yet I look at the teams ahead of them and I'm just not afraid of them. I'm like Macaulay Culkin. I'm not afraid anymore. Like, maybe that's what the Bills are. They're Macaulay Culkin and Home Alone. I'm not afraid anymore. I need that drop. I need to add that to my drop list. So anyway, the Bills are definitely the scariest team in the AFC. But speaking of the NFC, the opposite division, I got 2 storylines. One that I'll go through really quickly. Carolina, what the hell? I mean, what the hell? You had it. You had it right there for you. Okay? All you got to do is beat the Saints. The Saints. And you lose. You lose to the Saints. You still got 2 games against Tampa Bay. If you win that game, you're going to go back home to play Tampa Bay, who is falling apart, have all the momentum in the world, all the pressure on the Buccaneers to reclaim that division. And what do? You biff it. You biff it like you always biff it. I am so mad at them. I am so mad at my fellow Blue Cat team that they would do that. I'm very angry with them. I'm very, very upset. That's all I have to say about that. The other thing that I do got to talk about, Micah Parsons goes down, ACL. Speaking of ACLs, 2 ACL injuries this week. Brutal stuff. To be honest with you, the Packers very well could just utterly collapse here. And as a Lions fan, that could work to our benefit because right now they're the 7 seed. So as much as they might have the tiebreaker on us, they lose all 3 games. Our scenarios for getting in are, I think, just a couple of wins. Like, I think we would just have to win 2 games if they lose all 3. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure if they lose all 3 and we win 2, they go 9-7, 9-7-1. Oh, well, hold on. Wait a minute. Because that tie might keep them. They go 9-7-1, and we would be 10-7. Okay, so yeah, we would still need to win all 3. That's the stupid Packers. All they had to do was lose to the Cowboys, but they just couldn't do that. They had to get a tie. Losers. Anyway, sorry. I was hoping that maybe. I mean, I guess it helps us. It's one less team to have to. I don't know if it helps. I don't know, man. Whatever. It sucks for the Packers because that means Micah Parsons is not only going to be out for the rest of this year, he's going to be out a significant amount of time next year. And again, similar to Mahomes, depending on how that season is going to look, you might just say, you know what, I'm going to take that season off too, coach. And depending on setbacks and stuff like that, that's another consideration to have to worry about. But I mean, Micah Parsons is obviously not nearly as instrumental in the Packers' success as Patrick Mahomes is to the Chiefs. But now I just look at the NFC, and unlike the NFC, where I think it's the Bills and then a bunch of other teams, you bring up the Texans. Maybe. I think. I mean, it'd be so strange if we get a Texans-Bills AFC Championship game. It's entirely possible. I mean, depending on how the bracket looks, actually, it might not be possible, but you get what I mean. Actually, I think it would be because the 7 seed plays the 1 seed, 6 seed plays the 2 seed. Yeah, I think it could. Anyway, out of the NFC, though, I don't believe any of these teams. The Rams are the only team that have clinched the playoff. I guess if I had to pick a team, I guess it'd be the Rams. But Devontae Adams goes down. Puka Nacua, he was dealing with something. He appeared to be okay, but, he's obviously dealt with injury before. There's 3 more games left. One of them on short rest this week on the road against Seattle, which is a really tough defense. Like, the Rams could drop that game. I think Seattle would. I could be wrong. I think they wouldn't clinch. But they would be in. Where am I? I just totally lost my train of thought. They would be in a tough spot because they would be the number 1 seed. They probably would end up with the number 1 seed, depending on how the rest of these games go for everybody else, because they are just that good. But it'd be kind of similar to the Lions of last year, where they're beat up. They're going to be going into the playoffs. They're going to go up against a team that's scrappy, that wants it. That could be a tough game for them in a weird way. Outside of them, I don't care. I don't believe in the Bears. I don't care. I will. The Bears could be in the Super Bowl. I don't believe in the Bears. I don't believe. I definitely don't believe in the Buccaneers. They're falling apart. The Eagles look like they're falling apart too, although they just had a great get-right game against the Raiders. But like the top 4 teams in the AFC or the NFC, I don't believe in any of them. I really don't. I mean, maybe the Rams, but then, like I said, injuries make it a concern. In a weird way, I know I just said I don't believe in them. In a weird way, the Bears might just stumble into the NFC Championship game. They might. I mean, they've already shown the ability to beat the Eagles, and they're ahead of them in the standings right now. If they're matched up with, who would they be matched up with? The 2 seed. They'd be matched up with the 7 seed. They'd be matched up with the Packers right now, right? I mean, they're going to play the Packers this Saturday at home without Micah Parsons. I mean, I would be shocked if they don't win that game. I don't know. Maybe they do lose that game. That would be great. That would be a shocking revelation, but I wouldn't put it past them in a way because I don't know what team I'm going to get on any given week. So it's been a weird season. It's been a season of just totally unpredictable results. I don't believe the Bears are that sustainable right now. I mean, the Packers, in a weird way, they're the best team in they're not the best team in the division, but they're 4-0 in the division. How does that work? Like, I don't know. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, most of the teams have been eliminated from the playoffs in I guess actually more teams have been eliminated from the playoffs in the AFC. This is just a weird year, man. This is a really weird year. I can't explain any of this. So, and speaking of the Vikings, Jarrah strikes again. I'm just so, as much as I don't want to see the Minnesota Vikings win, because it's just funny to watch them lose. Like, of course they beat the Cowboys. Of course they do, because that's exactly what the Cowboys are. They're just a nothing team. They are run by a truly decrepit old man, a bitter old man who is stuck in his ways and refuses to ever take responsibility or acknowledge that he is not the guy to build this team. But yet, there he goes. Hope that Quinnen Williams trade was worth it, Dallas. Hope that trading Micah was worth it. You got plenty of picks, I guess. So you got that going for you. But yeah, hope it was worth it. You made your defense worse by trading Micah Parsons. Shocker. Very, very shocking. Nobody would have expected that. I would have expected that. I think literally every single human being expected that, except for Jerry Jones. Every single observer of the sport, every commentator, every former player, every current player, every single person knew that the Cowboys defense would get worse when they traded Micah Parsons, except for Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones, Jerry Jones. I'm sorry. I get too excited about Jerry Jones. I do. Gosh. MSU is just pulverizing. Kurtang for 3. Nope. Look out the rebound. MSU is just pulverizing Toledo. Why is this game on Peacock? Why is this game behind a paywall? Like, I guess I would kind of get it in a way if it was Oakland. And I know how stupid that sounds. The only reason I'd say I would kind of get it is because it's like in-state school. So maybe you'd say there's some intrigue. But, I mean, Toledo it's in Ohio. And they're terrible. It's a MAC school. Why would they put a MAC versus Big Ten match? And not even a MAC versus Big Ten matchup that might be interesting, like a MAC versus Ohio State or Washington or one of these other kind of middling Big Ten teams. Michigan State is one of the 3 teams that is going to win the Big Ten this year, almost certainly, between Michigan, Purdue, and Michigan State. That's true. They weren't a Micah away from a Super Bowl, but they also weren't... they were also not in necessarily the position to just trade him away. Like what should have been done, and ultimately he kind of screwed himself with this to begin with. They should have signed him earlier, right? And then not have to deal with giving him the massive payday. They should have been able to actually build a competent enough defense around him, as well as great players on the other side of the ball, and not waste many of his formative years under a dead man walking coach in Mike McCarthy. But, they fibbed that. They got something for him, but it's still a stupid trade. It's still a dumb, awful trade to trade him in the conference to a team that you are going to be playing that year. What are you doing? What are you doing? You can't trade Micah Parsons. It's inconceivable that a player of that caliber would be traded. Inconceivable. Except in the mind of Jerry Jones. Now, speaking of inconceivable and moves or lack thereof that are being made, let's spend a little bit of time talking about the Detroit Tigers. So, The winter meetings, I don't know if they ended or if they're still kind of happening. I don't really know how these things work, to be honest with you guys. But the winter meetings are going on or have gone on. I don't know. Again, you're asking the wrong guy. Now, the Tigers, like pretty much every team, have made some moves. Here are the moves. They brought back Gleyber Torres. Solid. I like Gleyber. They signed Kenley Jansen to a 1-year deal. They re-signed Kyle Finnegan to a 2-year deal. And they signed Drew Anderson.
Oh no. Oh no.
That was my feeling about these moves. That is I have a question. Why am I supposed to care about this team? Why? Give me a reason, Scott Harris. You're signing Drew Anderson. You're signing Kyle Finnegan and Kenley Jansen. Why would I care? Why should I care? The Tigers last year had the division in their hand. They fumbled that. They lost the divisional round. They had that in their hand on multiple occasions. They fumbled that. Hitting has been a concern on this team basically since like 2017. And yet, this team, whether it was Al Avila before him and now Scott Harris, refuses on principle, seemingly, to sign a bigger name bat, to sign anybody of note. Anybody. I'm not asking for Alex Bregman, but anybody. Like, you don't want to sign any bat to this lineup? Like, nobody to insulate the young core that will, be added in throughout as every year you have prospects that come up and take roster. You don't want to do anything? That, to me, is malpractice. When he first got here and he didn't do much, okay. It's roster assessment, see what you got. Maybe pick up some guys on waivers, cheap, low risk, high reward. Maybe you got that in Zach McKinstry, a solid utility player. Last year was a silver slugger, which is kind of funny, but whatever. Like, you got some value out of a Zach McKinstry. You even got some value out of a Matt Vierling, although his value, I think, is significantly dipped due to the fact that he didn't play very much last year, and when he did play, wasn't very good. 2024, you're like, okay, the offense is really terrible, but maybe you could show something. Maybe you go out and you could sign some names. Didn't really do much. Okay, didn't really do much at all. Okay, once again the offense is terrible. Looks like they're gonna miss a playoff, but then hey, they turn it around. They make the playoffs. What a fun run! Let's build around this team. Let's go out and get some bats. Let's really insulate this team that was carried by some amazing pitching down the stretch and some really great game management by AJ Hinch. And they signed Gleyber Torres. And that's it. They don't do anything else. Now, what you might say if you want to be a positive Penelope, which I'm willing to be, a positive Penelope, you might say, they brought up Dylan Dingler, came out. He was a great player for him. Riley Green, he had a great season overall, but granted the strikeouts were not great. Spencer Torkelson took that step forward that we needed to see him take, had a good season for the team. Javier Baez emerged as, actually a player worth putting on the lineup. But ultimately, I defer to what happened last year. You collapsed. Your hitting couldn't score anything down the stretch. I mean, you were losing games like 2-1 because you just couldn't string together hits, period. And you're telling me that after what I watched last year, and then after what I watched in the postseason, going 15 innings and not being able to score not one run in 15 innings, or I guess they scored more than one run in 15. What did they score? 2 total runs in 15 innings? Unforgivable. That's unforgivable. How can you look at that and say, you know what we need? We need Drew Anderson and a bunch of kids coming up. We need Drew Anderson and Kevin McGonigal to save us. If Kevin McGonigal was Derek Jeter, he'd be on the team. He would have been on the team last year. So I am going to be skeptical until all doubt is removed. But to me, the cream of the crop, the coup de grace of what I think is complete and utter embarrassing mismanagement is what is going on with Tarek Skubal. Evan Petzold, who I believe writes for the Detroit Free Press, could be wrong about that, but either way, he's a Detroit Tigers beat writer. He reported in an interview he did with 97.1 The Ticket, the big Detroit sports radio flagship station. He reported that the Tigers, he does not expect the Tigers to trade Tarek Skubal. Okay. He does not expect the Tigers to sign Tarek Skubal. Okay. And furthermore, he does not expect the Tigers to go all in and build around Tarek Skubal for a short-term, win now kind of scenario. One last hurrah. And I once again go back to the question I topped this segment with. Why am I supposed to care? Why am I supposed to care if clearly Scott Harris doesn't seem to care? I understand. I don't want to calumniate the man. I'm sure he wants to win, but his strategy does not come off to me as somebody with any sense of urgency in the midst of a player, a superstar caliber pitcher, a back-to-back Cy Young winning pitcher who is just absolutely elite, and that your organization developed. You have seemingly no interest in wanting to go all in or trade him for a haul if you could, or trade him for anything. I don't know how to help you at that point. If you don't want to make yourself better, and if you think you have unlimited time, then I guess you got unlimited time. And I know for a lot of people, it becomes a reflex to just be like, blame Chris Ilitch, not the GM's fault. Chris Ilitch. Okay. There's only so much that you can do with your owner. You can complain about the owner. You can say the owner is annoying. You can say the owner's cheap. But whether or not the owner is cheap or not, the guy making the moves is the general manager, is the president of baseball ops, and that's Scott Harris. He's the one who seems to not want to pick up any bats at all, to just let the kids play. He's the one who says, okay, my owner's cheap. I'll just run it back with the squad we have. What's the point of that? If Tarek Skubal is just going to walk after this year, why? And you're probably not going to win the World Series with the roster as is. Why don't you trade him? Is that so shocking? I love Tarek Skubal. I would rather they don't trade him. I would rather they sign him, and you deal with the ramifications of a long-term deal to a pitcher like him in the way you deal with it. Okay, you deal with it like the Dodgers dealt with Clayton Kershaw in the later years. Okay, I just, in my mind, the way to success in all sports: bring in good players, remove bad players. I don't understand what the approach is, if not just total obfuscation. Just, we want to build our own guys. We want to be like the Tampa Bay Rays or something. Like, if this is going to be the offseason, if the offseason is 2 years more of Kyle Finnegan and an extra year of Gleyber Torres and Kenley Jansen, and Drew Anderson is supposed to be your fifth arm in the rotation, yeah, I'm not interested in that. I want it to work. I do. Whatever. I don't care if they go out this year and they go 40-10 in their first 50 games. You're not gonna hear a complaint from me. But I'm sorry. That's just not going to happen. Almost certainly, it's not going to happen. And even if it does happen, we saw what happened last year when this team got off to a red-hot start and they completely fumbled it when reality, of course, has a say. In a 162-game season, reality has a say. And usually what that means is the teams with superstar hitters, they play like superstar hitters, and they drag those teams to success. Looking at Jose Ramirez and Steven Kwan. Who do we have that are those caliber kind of players? We have Riley Green, and we have friends. Basically. We have Riley Green and friends. And let me tell you something. I like Riley Green. If Riley Green's your best player, you're not winning the World Series. You're just not. Unless Riley Green becomes Aaron Judge next year and also gains a way greater plate discipline to where he's drawing walks and lengthening at bats and not just swinging away like he's, Merrill from Signs, the Mel Gibson movie. He's just swinging at everything that he sees. That's such a deep cut reference. I don't know if anybody's going to get that. Unless he's, Barry Bonds and he just hits everything into the seats, you're not going to go very far. You're just not. Because a high strikeout player in the playoffs is not going to lead you to success. It's just not. And your lineup right now, as it stands, is not deep enough to be able to compete with the likes of Seattle. It's not deep enough to compete with the likes of Toronto. It's not even really deep enough to compete with the likes of New York. So it's a demoralizing offseason so far. Things could change, I guess, but frankly, I don't have a whole lot of reason to believe they will. So, uplifting stuff. I know. Okay. All right. That was fun, wasn't it? What an uplifting show. Yeah, what a fun show we've had. All right. Let me adjust this. We'll go to 18. Okay. All right. So it is that time of the show. It is the very end where we get to have fun and embarrass ourselves by trying to pick football teams that we think are going to win. It is the picks. Hit the music. Did not mean to click that. There we go. All right. So my comeback is not going well. I'm 4 games behind. I can still come back though. I believe. I don't believe. Anyway, I don't want to talk about how I did last week. Shut up. Don't talk about how I did last week. Rams at the Seahawks. Thursday Night Football. Short rest for both of these teams. Seth is taking the Seahawks. I'm going to take the Rams, and you know why? Ginger quarterback Sam Darnold in a tough spot, primetime game. He doesn't win these kind of games. Give me the Rams. I don't care that it's at home. Give me the Rams. Eagles at the Commanders Saturday afternoon. Give me the Eagles. Jaden Daniels is not going to play anymore for this year. The Commanders are terrible. I don't know. It's Robert Griffin III all over again with Washington. So, Eagles will win, and I think at that point they might clinch the division. I think. I mean, I'd be surprised if they haven't already. But yeah, the Eagles are far superior. Packers at the Bears. Seth is taking the Pack. Okay, I want to believe, but I'll take the Bears. The reason I'm taking the Bears, the loss of Micah Parsons is going to be huge for this Packers team. Believe me, I'm going to be rooting for the Packers like crazy. I will, because I hate the Bears. And we need them to lose a game to help our odds of making the playoffs for sure. So I just don't see it. I just don't see the Packers coming away with it without Micah Parsons. They barely got the win against the Bears with Micah Parsons. I think without him, it's going to be tough. Give me the Bears. Buccaneers at the Panthers. Seth is taking the Buccaneers. I am taking the Panthers. All right? I want to believe. Carolina, please. I stated last week that you were going to win that division. You were going to make the playoffs. You're going to host a playoff game. I want to believe that Rico Dowdle is going to will that team into the playoffs. I don't know if this will age poorly. It probably will. But the Buccaneers are falling apart at the seams. Todd Bowles is losing control of that locker room. I mean, if you never really had much control to begin with, give me the Panthers. I think that the vibes, despite the loss, are still pretty good. All right? Bills. I don't. Shedeur Sanders is terrible, as everybody would have expected. Give me the Bills. Not even going to elaborate anymore on that. There's nothing for me to say. Chargers at the Cowboys. Yeah, going to take the Chargers in this one. It could be ugly, though. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys come away with a win here. Just because I think their defensive line could feast a little bit on that Charger offensive line. They got Omari and Hampton back for LA, but I don't know that he's really going to be able to do much running with that offensive line. For the Chargers to win, they're just going to have to hope their defense can keep them in a game. You know, Derwin James, if he can make big-time plays, if he can keep Dak from doing massive damage, Chargers win. And I got to imagine the vibes are just absolutely at an all-time low in Dallas. So give me the Chargers. And here we go. We got a bunch of games that frankly do not matter. So I'm going to try to speed run these a little bit. Jets, Saints. I don't know. I guess I'll go with the Saints. Home team. I don't know. They're both terrible. The Jets fired their defense coordinator. Is not good. And Tyler Shuck. I just whatever. Your name is Tyler Shuck. I don't believe you're a good quarterback. I don't care if that's mean. Vikings, Giants. Seth's taking the Vikings. Yeah, I guess I'll just take the Vikings right now. JJ's playing pretty well. They do have some weapons. They've been eliminated from the playoffs as well, but the Giants are just sad. They lost that game to the Commanders. I mean, that's just, I don't know, man. Everything's going wrong with that team. And look, this could be a complete, just boring snooze fest of a game anyway. Chiefs, Titans. Seth's taking the Chiefs. Yeah, I will take the Chiefs as well. I do believe Gardner Minshew will at least just force the Chiefs to a win. The Chiefs' defense is good enough to stop the Titans from scoring, which is not saying much. But, yeah, give me the Chiefs in a game that means literally nothing. Bengals at the Dolphins. I'll take the Bengals. I don't. Joe Burrow? Tua? It's a warm weather game, so maybe Tua will play better. Give me the Bengals. I don't know. Falcons, Cardinals. Falcons. The vibes are weird there right now. They got a crazy win over Tampa Bay on Thursday. Big Kirko energy. Maybe he can string together some spoiler wins. Not that you're spoiling much of anything for the Cardinals. They're dead. Yeah, give me the Falcons. All right, finally, we got some games that actually do matter. Jaguars at the Broncos. I'm going to go with the Broncos here. People have not, and myself included, have not talked about what the Jaguars are doing. They are holding on to that AFC South division. They're going to probably host a playoff game here. The Jaguars are good, but I do think that the Broncos defense is good enough, and I think that with the way Bo Nix played last week in Green Bay against a very good Packer defense, maybe he can get on a roll here. Maybe. But then again, there's another part of me that says, no, that was a one-time wonder. He managed to be a really good defense, but that will not happen again. Not that the Jaguars have a good defense, but I just don't know that I believe that much in Bo Nix. Give me the Broncos, though, either way. Steelers at the Lions. Give me the Lions. Look, Campbell hasn't lost back-to-back games in 2022. It's the longest streak in the NFL right now. And I don't think it's going to start with losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the corpse of Aaron Rodgers on short rest, mind you, coming into your house. You have to win this game if you're Detroit, and I think back against the wall, I trust the Lions more than I trust the Steelers. Give me Detroit. Raiders at the Texans. Not going to elaborate further. Kenny Pickett is basically your quarterback right now, Las Vegas. That tells me everything I need to know. Sunday Night Football, Patriots at the Ravens. Give me the Pats. Look, the Ravens are fighting for a playoff spot with that division wide open. If the Steelers do lose this game to Detroit, look for this game to be a must-watch game. I'm sure the Ravens will be watching that Steeler game very closely, but I don't think they're good enough. I think the Patriots, they got to a great start against Buffalo. I think they're going to want to get that taste out of their mouth. They're going to want to get right game, and I think the Ravens are a team to be a get right game against, which is so weird to say about Baltimore. They're basically my whole life they've been like good. Like, it's just weird to imagine them as a get right game. Finally, 49ers Colts on Monday Night Football. Seth is taking the Colts. I am taking the 49ers. I want to believe that Phillip Rivers is going to bring the Colts out of the doldrums, but I think the collapse is imminent. I think this Colts team is totally falling apart. They very well might miss the playoffs. Phillip Rivers is out there trying his best to put them over the edge. I don't think he's going to be able to do that against this 49ers team. Not that the 49ers are all that good. They're fumbling their way into the playoffs too, but they're winning games against bad teams and playing competently, at least, against the medium-level teams. I think they'll play just well enough to beat the Colts. Give me the 49ers on prime time. All right, rounding it all out here. Rams, Seahawks. I'm taking the Rams. Seth is taking the Seahawks. Eagles, Commanders. We're both taking the Eagles. Packers, Bears. I'm taking the Bears. Seth is taking the Packers. Buccaneers, Panthers. I'm taking the Panthers. Seth is taking the Buccaneers. Bills, Browns. We're both taking the Bills. Chargers, Cowboys. We're both taking the Chargers. Jets, Saints. We're both taking the Saints. Vikings, Giants. We're both taking the Vikings. Chiefs, Titans. We are both taking the Chiefs. Bengals, Dolphins. I am taking the Bengals. Seth is taking the Titans. The Dolphins. Falcons, Cardinals. We are both taking the Falcons. Jaguars, Broncos. We are both taking the Broncos. Steelers, Lions. We're both taking the Lions. Raiders, Texans. We are both taking the Texans. Patriots, Ravens. We are both taking the Patriots. 49ers, Colts. I am taking the 49ers, and Seth is taking the Colts. And those are your NFL Week 16 picks. All right. So Michigan State is just absolutely massacring the poor. 78-57. I don't know what the Red Wings score is. I guess I've probably gotten some notifications. The last notification I got 30 minutes ago was that the Islanders were up 1-0. And it's still 1-0 in the second period. Good game for my buddy to go to. A 1-0, just an absolute barn burner of a hockey game. But that's all we got. So, a little bit of a look ahead. We'll be live this Sunday. It's a 4:30 slate for the Lions again. So we'll be live around the same time this Sunday for the Lions-Steeler game, the final home game of the year. That's always fun. Not this time. Not this time. So we'll be live for that. That'll be next time we'll be live here. So be able that. Keep an eye out for that is the phrase I was trying to say. And if you missed that, we'll be back next week on Tuesday to break it all down. And I'm sure, hopefully, it'll be good news. Hopefully, it'll be a Lions win, and our playoff hopes are right there in front of us. Hopefully. Gosh, please. Just please. I can't take it anymore. This is just painful. Anyway, if you did enjoy, hit the like and the subscribe button. I do appreciate anybody for stopping by, listening in, hanging out. I'm probably not going to get to 500 subscribers by the end of the calendar year, but you know what? We still got a few weeks, all right? We got time. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. Have yourselves a great night. Let's hope Michigan State I would assume Michigan State's going to close this game out, and maybe the Red Wings will come back down 1-0. So have a good rest of your night, everybody, and take care. See ya. Good night. See you later.